I'll give just a minute or two for everyone seems to be arriving right now. So welcome everybody. I'll go ahead and get started and I'll just admit people as they pop in. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. My name is Sarah Rogers. I'm the COO here at PHNX Development, and I'm just going to kick us off and get started. First of all, I'd really like to say that everyone at our team here is very heartbroken at the staggering loss that has been experienced by you. And we understand that a lot of you are probably feeling overwhelmed. So today's presentation is not going to be complicated. We're going to speak for about 20 to 30 minutes about who we are, what we do, how we do it, and what you could expect from us. I'm just going to ask that you could stay muted and feel free to put your questions in the chat. And I'm going to monitor this chat and try to include these questions if they're relevant as we're moving through the deck. But we will get to everyone's questions at the very end at the Q&A. So the presentation, again, is going to be brief, uncomplicated, not overwhelming. We're going to start with introductions, talk about what non-combustible construction really is, our process as PHNX, start to finish, and then again, we are so here to answer your questions. So just put them in the chat and we are very happy to answer any questions you have. I'll kick it off by introducing Laurie, who's our CEO and founder. She's going to give an introduction and kind of introduce you to our team, and then she'll have a little bit of time too to just talk about the backstory of how we started PHNX and why we're here. So, Laurie, take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. And I'd like to thank you all again, follow on Sarah's introduction there, for spending your valuable time with us here today, because I know that you guys have a lot to do and you're very busy, and you know, we're not here to take up more of your time or overwhelm you. We're just here to give you some information and answer your questions. So, you know, I'll start out by introducing our team, and I think I'd like to introduce them in the order that you might encounter them if you were to sign up with PHNX. So many of you have already met or at least heard from Sarah Rogers, our COO. Sarah's superpower is listening. She hears, and she's really good at creating action items from you know, what she hears people saying. And her focus right now is in building our client care team. And that's going to be really important to ensure continuity from the project start to move in, because so many different people touch a project from concept design all the way up to move in, that it's really important to have one team of people that's focused solely on the client, solely on taking care of you. And so that's where Sarah's focus is these days. Next, we have Kendra Kettlehut. She is our senior home designer. Her resume is not short of impressive. From decades of experience working for renowned architecture firms like Perkins and Will and Gensler, to running her own successful residential practice here in San Diego for the past 10 years. Kendra is a smart and creative designer, and she will find elegant, functional solutions to any design challenge. That's something I can promise. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today. There was last-minute conflict, but she will be here at our future webinars, and she is, you know, the lead designer in our design process. So if you sign up with us, you will definitely be interacting with Kendra a lot. And her passion for architecture and design is contagious. And even in these troubling times, she will fill the design process with hope and with fun. because I think all of us could probably use a little bit of that right about now. And next we have Adam Jill, who is another valuable member of our Phoenix A team. Adam has more than a decade of experience as an actual building official and plan reviewer. So we actually have our own in-house real live plan checker, and he's going to plan check all of our plans before we even submit them to the jurisdictions. And he's already hard at work making connections with the jurisdictions, the city of LA, the county of LA, Ventura County. And so we'll be ready to hit the ground running once we have plans that are ready to submit. And like I said, they'll already have been plan checked by a real life plan checker. So that's going to be fantastic. And Adam is here today, and he'll be able to answer any questions you may have that regard permitting in the process. And then we have Andre Noel Chiara. He's our man on the ground. His clients have called him the miracle worker because he knows how to solve just about any problem. And he's got more than 25 years of construction experience here in the US and Canada. And there isn't much he hasn't seen on a job site. He's highly skilled, not only in finish work, but also in the full spectrum of the trades. So he's going to use his skills, his high standards and knowledge of how we do what we do to ensure that every single Phoenix home not only meets our standards, but his standards, which I wouldn't utter. I mean, his standards are really high. So that's our team. And so, okay, so this is a little awkward. So this is me. And, I'll talk very briefly about how I got here. And so I've been an architect in California for over 25 years. And I've had my own architecture practice, primarily residential, some commercial though as well, for 20 years. I started designing and building with ICF, insulated concrete forms, in 2011. And I started working with fire survivors in Santa Rosa after the Tubbs fire in 2018. And it was there, and you'll see on the slide too, I'm trained in crisis intervention and trauma-informed care because I spent about 10 years working with victims of violent crime. And so I'm trained to recognize trauma, and I'm trained to be able to be sensitive to that and communicate with people who have experienced trauma, and hopefully in a way that's a little more comforting and, compassionate than not having that experience. And so with my experience working with the Santa Rosa folks, I was blown away at, everything that they had to go through. Obviously there's the trauma of the evacuation, then there's the fire, then, but then all the other stuff that came after. And I'm looking at these folks and I'm seeing I'm seeing trauma. And I've had clients later on tell me that they don't even remember the design process. The whole design process is a blur. And I'm like, well, that's not good. We have to come up with a way to design these homes, to rebuild homes for people that is fast, easy to navigate, trauma informed, with more predictability and more control, so that you're not just kind of flying blind and you wind up, spending over $100,000 before you know how much your home is going to cost. And of course, their number one request was, we don't want to do this again. We don't want our home to burn again. So I got my mandate, I got my marching orders from my Santa Rosa clients, and I became determined to find a solution to this fire rebuild problem. And so now that you know a little bit about who we are, let's talk about what we do. So we are the only home builder in the United States building wood-free Type 1A non-combustible homes per code. And I'm sure you've probably already heard someone say, oh, there's a few companies out there that are doing that, you know. You have heard that because I've heard that all the time. But here's the truth. No one is doing what we're doing, period. And so what makes us so different? Non-combustible has a specific definition in the building code. And as you can see on the slide there, we have some really great resources. If you want to kind of nerd out and dig down a little deeper, you can go to that QR code, and we've got a fact sheet. We've even got a white paper that really digs deeper if you care to do so. And so, but this chart here, I think, is a great summary of what the building types are and why they matter. So in construction, in the building code, there's 5 different construction types, and they're categorized into levels of fire resistance and fire protection. And the way we use it is that we choose an appropriate category for the project we're designing. So, you know, depending on what the building is, determining what type of construction type it is will tell us how big we can build it, how tall we can build it, how many people we can fit into it. So that's the reason for the construction type in the code. Now, out of those 5 types, there's only 2 that are non-combustible, 1 and 2. The other 3 are combustible. And typically what type 1 is used, as you can see in the chart there, it's used for skyscrapers, it's used for hospitals, it's used for large venues, you know, megaplex movie theaters, things like that. Buildings that have a lot of people in them and who would need to get out safely in the event of a fire. And that's where we are. That's where Phoenix is. Almost all homes in the United States today are built as, guess what, type 5B, not even type 5A. 5A would be a little bit more fire resistant than 5B. 5B is literally the most combustible and the least fire resistant construction type in the entire code. And all of our homes are built that way. And here's the thing, even ICF homes, the ICF homes that I used to design prior to Phoenix were all type 5B. And it's because they all have wood in it. You know, and even if, you know, I know people have talked a lot about the all concrete homes. Now that's a pretty good solution, but that's not what we do. And there's a lot of complicated things that come along with that, including additional costs. And again, just because it's all concrete doesn't mean it meets the standards of type 1A. So that's the question. If you've got anybody that's telling you, you know, we do that too, ask them one question. Are your homes permitted as type 1A? And if they say yes, please let me know, because I'd like to know. But as in the past 5 years, we've done a lot of research, and there's no one doing what we're doing. And so the other thing that I want to mention too, which I think is really important, is the word fireproof. We call that the F word around here. We don't say that word. Nothing is fireproof. There's no such thing. If there is a builder telling you they can build you a fireproof home, if there is a vendor or a manufacturer telling you that their product is fireproof, you can turn around and walk away, because they're already making promises they can't keep. There's no such thing as fireproof. We don't claim to be fireproof. Nobody can. The true language that we use is found in the code. It is defined by the building code, and we are permitted as a non-combustible type 1A structure. That is in the plans, it's on the building permit. And later on, we'll talk about insurance, and it matters to your insurance company too. And it's not enough to have 1 or 2 non-combustible materials in your building, okay, like I was mentioning before. If there's a stick of wood in it, it can burn. So just because somebody is using ICF doesn't mean they're non-combustible. Now, you know, one thing that a lot of people, I think, don't understand about the building code, or just don't know, because, you know, nobody's out there reading the building code, right? It's not like it's how we want to spend our free time, right? So, but when the building code was introduced, it was introduced because people Okay, one person, our permit expert, Adam Jill, reads his kids' bedtime stories out of the building code. So,
Nothing puts them to
uh,
sleep faster.
oh, I bet. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Uh, the building code was initially introduced because people were dying in buildings. Buildings were getting bigger and taller. Cities were getting denser, and buildings were catching on fire and people were dying. So they scrambled to create a code that put rules on how we build buildings and what we build those buildings out of. And they made rules about like this so that people could get out in time. It was about life safety. It wasn't about saving the structure. If that factory burned down, the building code doesn't care. What they care about is getting everybody out alive. And so when somebody talks about 1, 2, 3, 4 hour ratings, that's what they're talking about. How long that structure will remain intact, safe enough to get people out. And that's obviously more critical when talking about combustible construction as opposed to non-combustible. But so even in this rigorous the safest fire safe category, type 1A, there's still nothing that addresses wildfire. There's really nothing in the code that addresses wildfire before WUI in 2011. And even the WUI regulations are kind of limited. There's a few places where they stop that, make me pause and wonder. But the areas where we exceed type 1A are the places where type 1A leaves off. So, we'll talk in a little bit about, I think on the next slide, we're going to talk about our long span roof and floor framing system. Yes, we do have a 100% wood-free structure, and that's required for type 1A. However, type 1A only requires exterior walls to be 3 hours. Ours are 4-hour rated. Our homes are 100% net zero energy because that was a request that the Santa Rosa fire survivors actually had. They said, you know what, we're going to have these power outages all the time. We don't want to have to worry about losing power. And that basically translated into a battery backup system. And we have all electric homes. We don't have any gas. So completely net zero energy. We have no roof vents. So we've designed a roof system that doesn't require venting. And type 1A doesn't care about that. Our windows, so this is crazy. Type 1A does, and WUI, neither has any rules about what your windows are made out of. So you could be building this totally non-combustible, fire-resistant house and then put vinyl windows in. That really kind of doesn't make sense. So we say no, and we use Sierra Pacific windows, a very high quality aluminum clad wood window that is incredibly durable, high quality product. And so from the exterior, it is non-combustible. So as long as your windows are shut before you evacuate, you should get no ember intrusion from the windows. And our entire envelope is sealed and rated at higher than R30. So there's no penetrations. There's no room for air or water or fire to get in. And we'll talk a little bit later about our mechanical systems too. If there's, I'm sure there's questions about that. So if we're totally sealed, do we not get any fresh air? Yes, we do. We'll talk about that later. So really even type 1A, the safest construction type there is in the code, we exceed that. And so, how is it that we do this? And we can say that, we're building it at the same cost as a standard build. Why hasn't anybody done this before? So basically what we do is, we've taken the challenge of, we've looked at the materials that we need to build a type 1A home out of, We've looked at everything that they can do, and we've basically optimized it. We've maximized it. Those 6 or 8 inch poured in place concrete walls and the insulated concrete forms, they do a lot of work. They're capable of an awful lot. Our PHNX long span system, it's called the long span system because it spans long. We can span up to 32 feet, and we can space our joists up to 8 feet on there. So the construction time, we can see, in the animation and in that photo up there, that's our home that's almost complete up on a lake near Yosemite National Park. And so we framed that in a day. And then our roof panels come in and those go on in a day. And then the roof is done. So there's basically different economies that are made in areas that, would normally you'd think cost more money. We make enough economies in those areas so that we can compensate. Sure, concrete and steel is more expensive, but we've saved so much money in the process that we're able to bring the costs back within the cost of a standard build. And I would say, with all of the advances with home hardening and the things that are being talked about now, I would even venture that maybe perhaps we're even a little less, but we'll see about that. No promises. And I'm gonna try to say I'm about halfway through here. So, we have more innovation. What I like to say is that basically we dumped out the toolbox, spread everything out over the floor, and looked at everything and said, you know what, we don't use this anymore. What do we need that for? We never use that. What if we put that with that? And so it's not like we're 3D printing houses. We're not doing modular. We're not doing anything like that. We're taking materials and methods that are very well known to experienced contractors. This is nothing new. And we're just using everything in a different way. We're borrowing a lot from commercial construction. That's for sure. So, a lot of our ideas come from there, but it's applied in a way that is sensitive to residential construction and the needs of residential clients, and especially fire survivors. And by selecting the right materials to do the right job, by designing a building that makes sense of its materials, we increase the efficiency of the design and the build to such an extent that we're able to reduce enough cost in enough areas to more than compensate for the added cost of the concrete and steel. And like I said, we are not modular. We don't have pre-designed plans A, B, and C. These are all site built. It's all about you. Now, does that mean that we can't start with a plan? Of course not. We get that all the time, especially for fire survivors. Sometimes you do want to start, if you can sketch a plan of your former home, or if you do happen to have plans available, we can work with that. If you see sketches online that you like, if you have an architect, we'll work with your architect, not a problem. This is a very versatile process. As you can see, we can achieve a lot of different, building types. It all depends on you and your budget. And so here's me and Kendra, your award-winning design team. And as we said, it's all about you. So the PHNX aesthetic, I would say the main part, our aesthetic definitely lends itself well to a mid-century modern California contemporary look. We do have the roof shape that we use is a shed. So it's a one plane slope. The planes do not intersect. So, if you're looking for, that's the one area where I think we really excel in is doing, that sort of mid-century modern aesthetic. However, we can do just about anything as far as arches. We can clad the building in stone, and brick, and siding. Our windows can have, panes of glass on them. We can do double windows. We can do large, 20-foot openings. There's a lot that we can do. And so the one thing that is common to every Phoenix is high ceilings, high vaulted spaces, large volumes, lots of light, lots of air. They're really lovely spaces to be in. And obviously there's hardly any maintenance. That's another thing. I mean, the exterior, there's no painting. You can just hose it off every now and then. And there's no bugs, there's no termites, there's no rot. So that's a great that's a great feature as well. And so I think one thing that is really, really important to the Phoenix process is, we've reimagined the whole process to be faster, easier, and no more expensive than traditional construction. But more importantly, we've designed a process that truly supports you fire survivors. We empower you to make good decisions without feeling overwhelmed. So what we do is we start with a 2-hour design kickoff meeting, and we basically work with you to determine, a target budget. And so then we launch into the concept design phase, which, could be about, 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how quickly you want to work. And it's an hourly. So you really control the process. How many design iterations do you want us to try out? And then at the end of that process, you'll have the Phoenix estimate. So before you're moving on to phase 2, in phase 2, we're starting to work on the pre-construction development. We're putting together the construction documents. We're permitting. Now, while we're into permitting, Kendra's going to be working with you on interior design. And then once we get through permitting, we're ready to start construction. Now, I'm sure all of you, I see the questions popping up in the chat. How much does it cost? How much does it cost? So we're going to talk about cost. So we only require a deposit of $33.75. That's 15 hours of design time. And that launches our concept and design process. And, depending on your site and your project, we anticipate that being between $9,000 and $15,000. The end of that process, you're going to have that detailed estimate. So, this is not your contract, it's an estimate, but it's really close. And it would be like if we were to start construction at that moment, that it would be almost right in line with that number. And here's the great thing about the trauma-informed process. It's that there's a pause. And so we pause, we give you time to think, to review, to talk it over. There's no rush. And if you decide to move forward, then we get into phase 2 with the pre-construction development drawings. And then again, you'll be working with Kendra a little bit on the interior design. We'll talk about that. But then once those documents are ready to submit to plan check for permitting, there's another pause. So at this point, you've invested maybe half as much as what you would invest with a normal process with just a straight up architect. And at this point right here, you still don't have a budget. You have a budget, but you don't have a detailed cost estimate. So, and we will check in with you again and update that estimate, and we'll give you some time before we submit. Are you ready to submit? Because submitting for permit and plan check, that does incur more cost, right? So it's every time that we're going to incur more costs, we give you time to digest and to think and to make a decision before we move forward. And then once we pull the permit, then we begin construction. Now, as I was saying, in the traditional process, you're going to go basically all of this time, usually without ever seeing a detailed estimate. I mean, if you do see one, good. I think you need to talk to them about how they arrive at that estimate. We're happy to talk about how we arrive at ours. But most, especially if you're working with an architect, it's very hard for an architect to give really accurate cost estimates because they don't do the building, they don't do the construction. So, and contractors, and especially now with all the rebuilds and the volume that's going to need to happen, contractors are going to be it's going to be tough for them to be able to write up an estimate, write up 2 or 3 different estimates for the same project during that process, unless you want to pay them to do it. So that's basically how the traditional process would go. And then you go into permitting, and you're really not going to know how much your house is going to cost until you get those permits and you put it out for quote. And then, you get some shockers. And believe me, I saw it. So here's something that is really, really important. And because we get these questions a lot, and I get it. It's really frustrating. You guys just want to know, how much is my house going to cost? And you want like, a per square foot number, or like some easy math. And the answer is, it's really hard. And the main reason why it's so hard is because we're trying to estimate the cost of something that doesn't exist yet. I mean, like the slide says, imagine pricing a custom car before designing it. You don't know the cost until you've got to choose the model, the materials, the features. Construction works the same way. Every home is unique. And here's the thing too that I think people may not realize is that from start to finish, there's over 100 dedicated professionals that touch your project at any given point. Between the design professionals, the vendors, the consultants, the people who do the drafting, the permitting, and then the build, the inspectors. It's a lot of people. And so in order for this whole thing to come in under budget or at budget, all of those people need to communicate really, really well, and they need to honor their commitments. And we do our best to vet our relationships that we have, that we build, to ensure that these are people that take their commitment seriously and they're good communicators first and foremost. And so that's, again, how it makes it easier for us to give more accurate budgets. But these are some of the reasons why it's so hard to tell you how much is your house going to cost. So prices are constantly fluctuating, especially now. There's a lot of uncertainty, and unknowns and risk and variability. So all of these things come into play, and I'm not dwelling on this to stress you guys out or anything, but it really is reality. And so what we need to do is set our expectations realistically for what we can expect. And so with Phoenix, we established that estimate early on in the concept design phase. We have a proprietary, we call it the cost dashboard. It's within our CAD software. And as we're designing in that concept design in real time, we see the cost. We see how the different design decisions that we're making are affecting cost. Okay. And that's how we can tell, oh, okay. Now, the other thing is, you've got a team. I mean, on our team, we literally have 100 years of experience. So when you're talking to us in that initial design kickoff meeting and you're saying, I have this wish list and this is my budget, we're going to be able to tell you right there if it's realistic or not. You know what, I think that's a pretty good budget, or I'm not really sure. We'll do our best though. you know, or we'll make recommendations to what we could do to bring one or the other in line. And so once we get that established and we get a target number that we're going to hit, then we get to work. And if during that work we're seeing like, oh, you know, we're kind of heading out of the budget, the realm of budget here, then we touch base and we check back in with you and we look for feedback. You know, what do you want us to do? Should we, you know, would you like to change up your wish list? Would you like to change your budget? Would you like us to work on both? That's where that hourly design fee really comes in handy, because you control how many different tries, you know, how many different versions of your design you want to do. And then again, there's no surprises. So once we're done with that concept design process, you have a very comprehensive set of drawings, including full-on 3D. You know what your bathroom looks like. We can walk through your entire home in 3D, and you'll have plans, elevations, sections, and that estimate, and the PHNX estimate. And then remember that graphic, we hit the pause button and we let you think about it and make very smart, well thought out decisions before moving forward. And, you know, are we perfect? No. You know, this construction business it's brutal and it's very unpredictable. And so, but what we can always promise is that we are going to be more sensitive to your needs than anyone else. We're going to have more control over cost and schedule than anyone else. And we're going to build you a safer, more durable home than anybody else. Those are the things that we can promise you. And here's the thing, it will not cost more than building a home the old way. That is for sure. So if you're talking to us and our square footage costs start sounding a little high, you know, it may be because, you know, you want some finishes, you know, if you want arched openings, you know, if you want stone, if you want siding, these are all things that would add the same amount of cost, sometimes even more, to a wood structure. It's no different. So, you know, if we're telling you that, you know, some of your square footage costs are getting a little high, it's not because it's a PHNX. It's because of maybe, you know, some of those appliances, or, you know, maybe there's a lot of cabinetry, or, you know, so basically we're going to work with you to stay within your budget, whatever that budget is. And we are not going to cost more than building a home the old way would. And I'm sorry, I'm taking a little more time than expected. I'll try and go a little faster. I think some of this stuff we've already talked about. So the phase one, the home concept and design process, like we said, it's about $9,000 to $15,000. It'll take 6 to 8 weeks. And you by the time this phase is over, you've got a really good idea of what your home is going to look like. Everything but the interior issues. And that's that pause that we talked about. And so here we move into pre-construction development. And, you know, that's ranges depending on your design between $35,000 and $45,000. So behind the scenes, we've got construction documents that are being produced, and our rock star Adam is talking to the jurisdictions and getting everything ready for permitting and getting that in. And in the meantime, what you'll be doing is you'll be working with Kendra. And Kendra is going to walk you through our Vision Builder. It's our proprietary design platform that we developed, again, with a trauma-informed approach in mind. So it's a system that, I mean, I've laid out an entire 3,000 square foot home in like 3 hours. And it's based on a system of 5 color palettes and 4 styles. And everything is coordinated and easy to pick, easy to digest. And Kendra will walk you through that. Now that's complimentary. And there's no markup for our finishes, okay? So that's another thing. There's no surprises. It's like whatever flooring you pick, it's included in the price. Now, if you would rather have a more bespoke experience with the interior design, we can do that. We can absolutely do that. And Kendra would be available on an hourly basis to work with you individually on a more traditional fee for service kind of interior design service. And there would be, selecting finishes from scratch and creating mood boards, material boards, things like that. But we've offered Vision Builder because I know, after designing homes for over 25 years, that where the construction process, a lot of times the roadblocks is in the interior design process. So I knew that that was a piece that we needed to streamline and integrate into the process to make it easier for everybody to do, so that the construction could happen on schedule, right? And then so phase 3, we get into construction, and our construction process is very unusual. It's not like your traditional process. It's much faster. It's cleaner. There's less waste. Inspections are fewer and easier. And there's no choices that are being made still while we're under construction. You know what your cabinets look like, your countertops, your tile, everything is decided. So there's no stopping for that. And Andre Noel is in charge of, visiting the sites, making sure that everything is up to Phoenix standards, that everything is being done in ways that that conform to our philosophy and our standards. Okay. So this, I think, many of you may have heard of. Back in November, we announced our groundbreaking alliance. We're the first home builder also ever in the United States to have an alliance with an insurance company. Mercury Insurance saw that Phoenix was different. We weren't just coming to them and saying, oh, we're building a house that won't burn. Oh, we're building a fire resistant house. We're building a hardened home. No, we're building a type 1A non-combustible home. And you don't need to take my word for it. Take the building official's word for it. Take the building permit. That those are the folks that vet whether or not we're non-combustible. Firefighters understand this as well, and Mercury understands it. And frankly, we believe that it's only a matter of time before the other insurance companies catch on as well. Also, because we have no interior load-bearing walls, I don't know if I mentioned that. So if there is any damage on the interior, for one thing, there's no wood, so you just remove the finishes and replace it. So there's no replacing of framing. But also, if for some reason there is damage to one of the framed walls, you just take them down and put up a new one. There's no need for a structural engineer. There's no need for a permit. So that was another thing that Mercury really appreciated, was the fact that recovering from water damage would be a super easy process, at least much easier. Yeah?
Talking about water, can you talk about moisture and how it's protected from outside moisture as well?
Oh, sure, of course. So the ICF walls are basically 12 inches thick when all is said and done. So there's 2.5 inches of foam on the outside and the inside. And on the interior, there's a 6-inch concrete core or an 8-inch, depending on what we need the wall to do. So that foam on the exterior, if it's below grade, we apply a waterproof membrane and a drain grid to wick water away from the surface. But it's expanded polystyrene, so water's really not, it's not going to rot. It's not going to absorb water. It's not porous. It's not organic. And then above grade, we clad just like any other building. Our stucco is a 2-coat acrylic stucco that goes on a lot faster than plaster and lath. It's a lot more durable. And again, it's waterproof. So water resistant again. But and so from the exterior, and then of course we're all sealed up. And so the same vulnerabilities that you would have to fire would also be vulnerabilities to water. So, you know, our stanchions for our photovoltaic system simply clip onto the standing seam metal roof on the seams. So we aren't even making penetrations in the roof to fix our solar panels. So this house is really it's a house that you're going to have trouble looking through it, you know. Does that, Sarah, do you think that would have answered their question? Okay.
To piggyback on top of that, Phil asked, is your design a passive house designed to achieve air tightness for energy efficiency and air quality control in addition to fire resistance?
Yeah, passive design. I don't really use that term a lot because I don't like to see a house as passive. I see it as active in the sense that if you have all of the windows closed, you know, we have a whole house fan, a Brown ERV, that is going to be doing air changes, you know, several air changes per hour. So you're constantly going to have fresh air that's being circulated in your zoned HVAC system, by the way. However, if you want to just open up your windows, you know, we design with a lot of natural ventilation too. So you can have that choice. And yes, we're generating our own energy, absolutely. On-site generation, on-site storage. So, you know, it's a house that's a true shelter. I never know how to answer that question, the passive. You know, there's really no thermal, you know, there's nothing really thermal going on, you know, other than, I mean, because it's so well insulated. But I would say the most passive feature of it would be the full solar array, the site generation, site storage, and daylighting and control ventilation, if you choose. And so, you know, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, well, geez, you know, are you guys going to rebuild Los Angeles? And it's like, yes, no. So, you know, of course, we're only human, but we are growing. And here's the thing, we are prepared, we're ready, we have a plan. This is why we exist. This is why I founded this company, was to focus on fire rebuilds when there's a wildfire. And because this is a growing problem. And it's kind of like, you know, when universal design started and grew out of accessibility, you know, and so we talked a lot about, you know, roll-in showers and grab bars and you know, one-story homes, fully accessible homes. And it's because it doesn't, you know, it's not just for temporary, you know, for less able people. It's also for everybody. It's just easier to get around in. You know, if you have your hands full of groceries, or you've got a baby, or, you know, or you broke your leg or something, it's like, it's really nice to have those accessible features in your house regardless, right? And so that kind of became like universal design. So what's happening with the Phoenix Way is, you know, because we were designing to solve the most difficult problem, fire rebuilds, we wound up creating a system that it's our own ecosystem that is so streamlined. It's like everybody wants it. So, you know, we've got a lot of just custom home clients that want homes in, you know, high fire hazard areas, and they love the Phoenix Way. But initially, we were born to help rebuild. In a way, we're kind of like an emergency responder. So we are, we've addressed the construction time, because we all know you don't want to be, living in a hotel or a hotel for 3 years, right? And your insurance company doesn't want that either. And like I saw in Santa Rosa, there was a lot of labor poaching, and things like that. And, we're going to be less vulnerable to that because our contractors are different. We attract a different kind of contractor. So they're not the contractors that are typically building residential homes. And the people that we've signed up to work with, that we are signing up to work with now, have made wonderful, extraordinary commitments. We have an ICF contractor who's committed to building 22 homes a year, at a certain pace. We're talking to logistics people about how can we maybe zone geographically, and because we control the pipeline. So we're designing these homes. So once we sign up somebody to design their home, we know that they're going to want to break ground in about 6 months. So we can go out there and say, okay, how many other homes do we have starting right now? And we can have kind of these group builds, and strategically schedule them so that we're working over here, in March, we're working over here in June, and we're scheduling all these things and rotating the different trades so that we can build these in a systematic way, so that we aren't really grappling with all of the same issues that more traditional construction is going to grapple with. And we have one-to-one relationships with our vendors and suppliers. And these are built on relationships that I and our team have had for decades, right? And I trust them, they trust us, and there's no middleman. So we buy direct from our suppliers. And our entire structure is made in the United States and actually made in California. So our ICF blocks are Fox blocks, and the facility that will be out of is Phoenix, Arizona. So the blocks are in Arizona and then drop shipped on site. Our steel is fabricated here in San Diego. It's our patent pending long span system. Roof panels, Vacaville, AWIP, all weather insulated panels. Sierra Pacific windows are fabricated and manufactured up in Redding, California. And our stairs, view rail stairs and railings, they are manufactured in Indiana. So, look at all of that. We get to the shell of the building without ever leaving the United States.
Laurie,
And
I
yeah.
did hop in that I think would be fitting. Andrew asked, do you expect the timelines to be longer considering the much larger than normal demand for new home construction? I know you're kind of touching on that right now.
Yeah, I mean, none of us know. I mean, I would assume that there are definitely going to be effects. Where it would affect Phoenix is going to be in all the other stuff. Like, every house has drywall. Every house has electrical, mechanical, plumbing. Every house has cabinets, countertops, appliances. So those are the things that I think, we could run into difficulties with. But again, where we have the advantage over everybody else is that we've nailed down all those specifications already before we pulled the permit. So we can already be in contact with our vendors and say, hey, we've got 5 homes and there's, 5 GE Cafe refrigerators. There's, 5, Bosch induction cooktops, et cetera, and those ordered and get them ordered in time. So it's because we build these homes the same way every single time, it's a lot easier and it's a lot more predictable. So that stuff is kind of taken care of. The structural stuff is taken care of. So then we can focus more on the other stuff that might be a problem.
Are there building code setbacks, etc., that anyone should know prior to designing a home? That was asked by Dawn.
We could, well, it's a good idea if you do know that. Um, you know, hopefully whoever you decide to go with will walk you through that. I know we do. So you don't need to come to us with anything. I mean, you can come to us and we'll guide you and let you know, what documents you need to get, what research you need to do. But again, we're going to do a lot of that for you. You know, we're not going to be sending you out running errands. You've got enough to do. So, and we've got Adam and a full team of people that can do that research. And frankly, I mean, because we're all going to be building in the same jurisdictions, we're going to know all that stuff already, you know, before we even start your project. So, so yeah, you don't have to spend your time running around finding answers to that. So I think that wraps it up. And I'm so sorry I spent a lot more time than I intended. So maybe what we can do is just answer some questions now, and we can see faces.
Yeah. We got a question from Phil. What are features against ember intrusions? I thought this was a really great question.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I would say first and foremost is the fact that we don't have roof vents at all, because, you know, I get that the anti-ember intrusion mesh on the vents does protect, but you still have a hole in your roof. So, you know, that's kind of the thing with like traditional construction. It's like we do all this stuff and then we have to spend more money to do other stuff to try and make a hole not a hole, or to try to make wood not wood. And so our approach is, well, let's just start right from the beginning. You know, let's start with materials that don't burn. Let's not put holes in the roof that we have to patch up with protective mesh and things like that. You know, so so the way our roof is designed, we have no roof sheathing, and we don't need an attic, so we don't need roof venting.
Dawn asks, is the HVAC system quiet?
Very, very. So we use a Mitsubishi mini split ducted HVAC system. So it's a heat pump, and there are usually 2 or 3 condensers that get put on the exterior of your home. And because we have 6 or 8 inch concrete walls and a bunch of foam on it, even if you have a bedroom on the other side of that wall, you're not going to hear the compressor, the condenser. So, and then on the interior, depending on your budget, depending on your wish list, we can zone. So there would be interior air handlers that, you know, depending on how many zones you want, each air handler would serve either a bedroom or the main living area or a group of bedrooms, so that you're not heating and cooling your entire house. And those units are very, very quiet. So most of the noise is happening on the exterior. And even those units on the exterior are pretty quiet in comparison with other products. But here's the thing too, is that what you're going to find living in a Phoenix home is that your system very rarely is going to be kicking into gear, to be honest. So there's, you know, the temperature stays so constant that you're really only going to need it every now and then to give you a little kick. And then of course to make the air changes too for fresh air, unless you have the windows open. But so the system is definitely a quiet system, and you're not even going to be using it that often.
David and Maria ask, can your construction incorporate a septic system? We don't have sewer line in our area.
Absolutely, absolutely. That has no impact on the design of the house whatsoever. It's an additional process that we have to go through, but it's not at all a problem.
Dawn asks about the induction appliances. Are they easy to maintain? And if repair is required, is that a timely process?
They are super easy to maintain. All you do is wipe them down. And I love cooking. I am a cook. And I love induction. I prefer it more than gas, actually. And as far as if it breaks down, repairs, that I really can't speak to. That's more of a manufacturer question. I mean, if that's something that's important to you, looking for a good warranty or something like that, then we would talk about that. And we'd talk about, the brands of appliances that offer, better warranties, better service plans.
I think something good to touch on, just based on a few questions that have come in, is regarding our pipeline and how many houses we have coming up, how many we've built, kind of where we've gotten, how we've gotten where we are. So lots of questions around, how many houses have we built, what's in the pipeline, etc.
Okay, well, that's a tricky one because Phoenix we founded Phoenix in 2019, right? So we have it takes time to build buildings and it takes time to build a business. So we are already building our third home right now. However, I've been designing and building homes for over 25 years. Andre Noel Chiara has been in construction for over 25 years. Kendra Kettlehut has been in design and build outs and construction for over 20 years. We have a host of contractors that have decades and decades of experience, multiple generation companies that have experience. So what I would encourage you to look at are the homes that we've done, of course, and we are going to be providing some client testimonials on our website. Those take a little bit of time to put together. It's a process, and I'm sure a lot of you saw the piece on ABC7 a couple weeks ago with Philip Palmer. I think that would be a really good thing to watch because you can hear the Palos family talk about their experience and why they chose Phoenix, and you can get some glimpses at their home and even on the interior of their home. But clearly, we don't want to be, inundating these folks with visits and requests and things like that. So we have to be respectful of their privacy, but we are working on a way to, maybe get them on video and answering some questions about why they chose Phoenix and how great the experience has been, because really honestly, we've had a lot of good feedback. And, like on our third home now, it's going faster than the first two did and better. And we've got contractors that want to come down here and build our homes down here from up north because they love working on a Phoenix home. And so, we may not have a long history of building homes as Phoenix, but our team has a whole bunch of experience building homes for a very long time that we bring to the table. Phoenix is we are, we're revolutionizing the way we build homes, and frankly other buildings too. So this is a big deal, and we pretty much expect that other people are going to follow suit. So we're ready for that challenge, and it's going to make us better. But this is new, and I mean we're here, we're ready, we have a plan. We're going to do our best to serve as many people as we can, and the folks that we can't get to right away, we're going to be transparent and honest with. But we're also going to invite contractors to join us, and we'll teach you how to build Phoenix homes. We'll help you become a Phoenix certified builder. So we can build as many homes as possible.
Along those lines, Andrew.
I think it's important. I'm sorry, Sarah. I think it's important to make the point too that Phoenix is a startup. It's a newer company, but it's not experimental. We've got the building code behind what we're doing.
Yeah, nothing we're doing is brand new. We've kind of just got the right parts and pieces and put them together
differently, right? Good point.
Andrew asked, is it possible the Phoenix homes will not qualify for expedited like-for-like permitting, considering it's such a novel approach to building residential homes?
I know what I would answer that, but I think that's for Adam.
Nope, I see
Nope.
that. You have to unmute.
There we go. Sorry about that.
There, that's okay.
Phone's not cooperating with me. Anyways, no, that's not going to be an issue. Most of the time, that's based on square footage. In terms of, I mean, if somebody had a 2,000 square foot house and they want to now build a 5,000 square foot house, they're going to say, hold on a minute, this isn't a like for like build. As far as type of construction, that's not going to be something that necessarily the building department will be concerned with. Maybe something that your current insurance company has something to say about. This isn't quite a like for like structure in terms of what it's built with, but I'm sure they would be happy to work with you because it's going to be more fireproof in the future, to put it that way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
great. Thanks, Adam.
Sure.
Todd asked, you may have answered this, but what is the exterior cladding? A lot of
The exterior cladding is really budget dependent. So the Phoenix homes that we've designed so far are stucco. It's just because it's, when we're really trying to get everything to fit in that budget, it's, if we want stone or siding, it's pretty much the first thing to go commonly. I mean, we're talking, it's a significant increase. It's, 3 to 4 times the cost of stucco. So it's really like the first place that we'd go to take cuts if we needed to. Now, on the other hand, what's super cool is that when you're putting stone on a wood building, those walls need to be engineered for that stone, or, if it's some kind of like rain screen cladding or something like that, those walls need to be engineered differently than if they were just going to have stucco. Not so with ICF walls. With our walls, we can put all the stucco on, and then you can wait a couple years, and when you've saved up a little more money, then you can come back and put that stone on. You can put that siding or that cladding on that you wanted. It's not, it's not at all trouble. I mean, you can put the stone right on top of the stucco, just mortar it right to the stucco. So, so the cladding, I mean, we literally can do anything that you can do. I mean, we're not going to do wood, I hope, we're not going to take, wood panels and cover our type 1A non-combustible home with wood. But there's a lot of products that really do a good job, and they look fantastic. And so we can definitely do a wood look if that's something you're after. But yeah, there's no limit to what the cladding options are.
Speaking to that, David and Maria ask, are other exterior and interior design styles possible, such as Spanish, Mediterranean, etc.?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So our roof shape really is the standing seam metal shed roof. So we can either do, one slope, and we can do 1/2 inch per foot all the way up to 4 and 12, 4 inches per foot, which is actually more like this. Or we can do an offset. I always get, or we can do an offset gable like that. Now, both of those shapes are very typical California mid-century vernacular familiar shapes. What we can also do, it does add significant cost and maintenance, however, and that is a parapet roof. We can do a parapet roof, and we would the roof is just another floor essentially, and we have a parapet around it, but it's a lot. It costs a lot more. There's a lot more steps. It's tougher to insulate. It's tougher to waterproof. It's tougher to maintain. You're going to have to be up there every year, making sure that the drains are clean, that water's evacuating. If you have any kind of ponding or anything on the roof, that's going to be a trouble. So we just kind of practice it with that. But if that's a look that's really important to you, and we can get a budget together that can accommodate that, then we can do it. And then we can do arched openings and arched windows and arched doors. So we could get like the only thing we can't do is the Spanish tile. But, we could even do, the ceramic tile, porcelain tile, like inlays, for little, tile details on the exterior. So the Sotillo tiles. So we could really do a lot with that. But again, any little details, anything that's added is going to add to your budget, and it would add to a wood home budget as well. So that is like for like. If you're going to add arched openings to a wood house, arched openings to a Phoenix, it's going to increase the cost in both.
In that same vein, Craig was asking about how our roof system can be incorporated into a more traditional design beyond the mid-century modern. So I wasn't sure if you might, I know that's something we've been chatting about internally for sure.
Yeah, we're just, we don't, we're still securing the patent on the long span system. So we're really not in a position to already start innovating the next iteration. It is coming. It's just not there yet, because the big innovation with the long span system is the elimination of the roof sheathing, which is the key to getting the wood out, which is the key to getting us the type 1A non-combustible permit, right? So all of a sudden, when you start having a gable roof or a hip roof, that sheathing comes back. And that, so you have to find a way to do that. And then you get your vulnerability again, because you have ridges and you have valleys, and so it starts getting complicated again. Eventually, we're going to figure out a solution. But what I would say, like a lot of the homes that some of you have shown us so far, like let's say you have a gable roof, but the gables are on the side of the house, right? There we go. So like the gables are on the side of the house. And so in the front, all you see is a sloped roof that comes down. Well, we can do that as a shed. And from the street, you're never going to know that it's not a gable. It's just that it would slope up and then towards the back of the house. So the back, or, we could do that offset gable that I was talking about. And that can be a little more of a traditional look. Also, it depends on the color that we pick for the standing seam metal roof. They have some really nice copper and, some darker browns and things. So you don't need to get like the aluminum or the steel looking, silver or white or, some crazy like IHOP blue or something. We don't need to go there with that. They do have some more traditional. And again, for budget ads, you can even get textures. You could get textured metal for your roof, which can be really kind of cool. So you can have like patinaed copper looking and stuff like that.
Once we're talking about the roof, Susan asked, if the beam length is 30 feet, what do you do on a 40-foot home with an open interior?
So I know I said no interior bearing walls, but in every design, there's going to be one or maybe two ICF load-bearing walls for stability and also for spanning. However, these do not need to be walls. We can make concrete beams out of them as well. So basically, like we have this in our Yosemite house. There's a concrete beam going between the kitchen and the great room, and the bottom of that beam is at 13 feet. So you hardly even perceive it. And there's another concrete beam between the kitchen and the laundry, bath, guest area. And we framed that in underneath. So, so we have two ICF beams, but no ICF wall below. You think that answers her question, Sarah?
Todd asked, can the stucco be made to look like concrete?
Yeah, that's a cost thing. Doing that really smooth stucco is super expensive. It's very time consuming and it takes a lot of skill. But the thing that's cool is that you will still have some cracking, you know, because it gets that finish, that fun finish, does tend to show cracks a lot. But I'll tell you, you're going to have a heck of a lot less cracks on a Phoenix home than you would on a wood home, because that wood is going to move a lot more than our home will.
Susan asked, with a 12-inch wall, how deep is the windowsill on the interior and exterior?
So we fix our windows at just about the middle of it's basically, it's closer to the interior. Okay, it's closer to the interior. So on the exterior, because the exterior is where we want the recess. We want that protection from water. We want that protection from the sun. We want the window to be protected. So we don't have all of that flashing and Jiffy Seal and stucco fins and stuff like that. And it looks better. So you get this really nice shadow line on all of your windows. And then on the interiors, there's about a 2-inch recess on the interior as well. And we just do a really clean drywall return.
This question just came in from Mike. If we have a group of homeowners that are interested in a group build, is this something that you guys do to help lower costs?
Yes. So now it's an open question as to how much those costs would be lowered. So, you know, I can't commit to like, oh, if we get, you know, 20 of you build together, that's going to cost 10% less, you know, because we just haven't tried it yet. We are designing our first homes in Camarillo because I want everybody to remember there was a big fire there too on November 7th. And, you know, the folks from the mountain fire, they lost 134 homes. We're getting that process started with them now. And so we're working on one street in Camarillo, and we're planning on breaking ground on those homes in September. So we'll be able to see, how building in unison helps us streamline even further. And whenever we can pass costs on, we will, clearly, but it's not something that we can be sure of yet. But I also, you know, looking forward, you know, since we do control that whole pipeline, it's like, you know, we can definitely geographically strategize as to, okay, let's build this neighborhood first, let's build this one next, or let's build these at the same time. And so I'm confident that, you know, once we do this a little bit more, we'll be able to see those cost savings.
Phil asked, is it possible to get a general cost list of what is included and what is not included in terms of services and products in the design process?
Sure, we'd have to put that. We have a spec book. It would just need to be updated. I think it should be pretty close. I think we could do that. We could put it for, maybe we can put it for download. I don't know. Either download or just something that you can read online. Okay. Yeah, basically everything's included. You know, we don't leave, I mean, the only things that might get left out are the site, you know, the site work that's outside of the building footprint. So, you know, we're not going to handle all of your landscaping and, you know, finish items and stuff like that. I mean, we can help. If you want a pool, I mean, ICF pools are really cool. You know, we can coordinate those kinds of things, but typically our expertise is not like doing budgets for landscaping. That you'd really be better off going to a landscape contractor, having them coordinate with us, but, you know, getting those costs and getting all that site work done with them. Another thing that's really hard to estimate is any kind of grading, anything that's in the dirt. So if your previous home was on a slope or like a difficult site with a lot of rocks, or it's difficult to access, there might be some unknowns that we just simply can't know until we literally start digging. So that's always a possibility. But other than that, all of your finishes are included. All of your light fixtures, all of your plumbing fixtures, windows, doors, everything, solar, everything. So when the house is done, it's done.
Speaking along with site costs, David and Maria asked, our property, oh, sorry, my son's trying to FaceTime. Okay. Our property had retaining walls to the side and backyard. We don't know if they are still structurally sound. If they have to be replaced, would your team do that as part of the overall project, or do we have to get someone else to address this issue?
No, we could handle that. We'd need to definitely make it a point that it is something that we would be taking on. And ICF walls are awesome retaining walls. Awesome retaining walls. So for obvious reasons, I mean, for one thing, it's essentially a cast in place concrete wall. So you're not going to have the same failure rates as you would with masonry. You're not going to have the same water issues and, that leaching, I can't remember what it's called, like when you get that white sort of, calcium deposit. I can't remember what it's called. But, you're not going to get that on our walls. So absolutely. And I do just want to say something about that. When masonry or concrete is done through a fire, I really wouldn't expect it to survive, even if it's still standing. That cement is probably pretty damaged, and it's probably going to need to go. So, and besides, like, especially, footings, foundations, I'm surprised nobody's asked this question, but maybe I can answer it before it gets asked. Can we keep our previous foundations? No. and this would be a no, even if you were doing a wood building. Foundations, unless they were built 5 years ago or 3 years ago, they're not going to be up to code. They're going to be cracked. They're going to be crooked. They're going to be fire damaged. So you just wouldn't want to. I mean, I wouldn't want to design a home, where that's supposed to have 4 straight walls and have them be all crooked because I've got to follow some old cracked foundation, right? So, and the time to find out whether or not your foundation is okay is not like when we're under construction. And it's really impossible to know otherwise. So honestly, like, especially now that you guys are having the site cleanup and everything, I really wouldn't fuss about keeping slabs and keeping fittings. Let them take it all, because it's going to be better off later, because chances are you're going to have to pay to get that removed later, and that's expensive.
Carol Chan asked, so we will be the general contractor, Phoenix?
Yes. Yes, we are the general contractor. Now we are putting our plans for building our Phoenix certified build network on fast track. But we're just getting that rolling. Okay. So we don't know really what that's going to look like yet. So we're working on it. But in the meantime, I mean, I can tell you that I've got a pool right now of at least 20 different subcontractors statewide who have shown serious interest in wanting to help us build our homes. So, and including some general contractors. So, we are definitely planning to spread the love, spread the work. We want other people building our homes. That's the goal. But I'm sure all of you can understand the need for quality control as well. So, you know, we can't like right out of the gate, you know, certify a bunch of builders and then cut them loose and have them writing, you know, contracts with all you guys. We want to make sure that we're proceeding in a way that is going to preserve our integrity, the integrity of our service, the integrity of our product, and really maintain the ethos of Phoenix, which is getting you back to your lives. That's why we're here. And so we want to make sure that anyone that we bring on board is ready to honor that commitment.
Well, considering we're a few minutes from 6 o'clock, I think I've got to everyone's questions. If you have an outstanding question, feel free to toss it in or ask it. I've been trying to go and make sure I got everyone. Susan asked, do you hire and contract all of the subs?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and that's just part of our role as a general contractor. So, and I would just say this as a general word of advice to everyone: please don't try and do this owner builder. You've got really enough to work on your plate, and building a home is a really, really big job. And especially if you've never done it before, or if you've only done it once, or if you've done a remodel, or, you know, it's a lot to take on. And when you've got all of this other stuff happening, just find a good general contractor and that you trust, and let them do their job, and so that you can get on with your life.
Are the subs required to have adequate bonding, etc.?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Bonding, insurance, you know, valid licenses, you know, and like I said, they have to understand that, you know, we operate on schedule. When we say we're ready for you, it means we're ready for you. And if you say you're going to finish in 2 weeks, we expect you to finish in 2 weeks. So, you know, we have very high standards. You know, we want to be the best. You've seen here today just a few of the key members of our A team. I mean, everybody that is signing up with us are rock stars. And that's because that's what we want to provide, because you deserve it. And, you know, this industry has been very rough and tumble for a very long time. It's been dysfunctional, and it needs a lot of fixing. It needs a lot of fixing, and that's what we're here to do. And, you know, we aren't perfect. We are human. We are going to make mistakes. We're, you know, figuring some of this out as we're going along. But the things that we aren't figuring out as we go along are how to build a home. We know how to build a home. We know how to design a home. We've done it over and over and over all day long. And we want to be able to do that for you. We've just figured out how to do it a lot better.
Well, I think that gets us to a really great place to wrap up. I want to thank everyone for staying, and I hope we got all your questions. This is being recorded, so this is something we are going to share out on our website so you can rewatch. We'll be having another webinar in a couple weeks, and so you can RSVP to that. In the meantime, feel free to reach out, ask any questions. We're totally here as a resource for you.
Well, I just want to thank everybody so much for joining up with us today. It's really an honor. It's an honor, and this is the kind of the climax of my career. It's a bittersweet moment, you know, but this is where hope begins. This is where it starts, and we want to help you guys rebuild your new life with, you know, with hope and light and fun and look at this as an opportunity to begin again. And we're here to help you do that. So thank you, and please take care of yourselves. Breathe, slow down. There's no rush. Don't make any, rash decisions. We're here for you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy your evening. Thank you.